Hello everyone, welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome to the 2025 North Melbourne prediction video here on the channel. Today I'm going to talk through all of my predictions and hot takes for the 2025 season, from the team in general to specific players, and then a few storylines for us to follow throughout the 2025 season. I will have a predicting every game for North Melbourne in 2025 video coming very, very soon, as well as my best 23 for 2025 as well. So stick around for those coming up in the next week or so. But for now, let's have a look at what I think is going to happen for North Melbourne in season 2025. Okay, so I thought I'd start off more broadly, and I won't go into depth with these too much today. They will come, like I said, in a different video, but starting with ladder position and wins for the year. I've tipped North to win 8 games this season and finish 14th on the ladder. This is the pro and the con of the season, I guess, being so even. Once again, the competition we saw last season was as even as it's ever been before. It really was anyone's game, and it wasn't until the last game in round 24 when the top 8 was set in stone. I think there are so many moving parts, and 1 or 2 results going either way could really depend on where we land up on the ladder in the season. So I've done a ladder predictor, and I will go through that at a later stage, but I think 8 wins is definitely achievable for North. I think there is always some room for upsets either way. Obviously, we got close to Collingwood and Melbourne in the second half of season 2024, but then we lost that really close one to West Coast in round 22. We don't need to rehash those games. We've spoken about them time and time again. So I feel like if a couple of those results go either way, then that could really shape what our season looks like. I think, and I said this in my what is the story for North Melbourne in 2025, I just want tangible improvement. And if we were to jump 3 or 4 spots up the ladder, but that was an extra 5, even 6 wins, I think most North fans would be absolutely ecstatic with that. Do I think we could go better than that? Of course I do. Do I think there's a potential for us to stick around the bottom where we have been for the past few seasons? I'd like to think that's not really going to happen. I don't want to be naive in the fact that the competition is so even. And on the flip side of that means that there probably aren't too many teams that are around the same mark as us heading into the new year. But I want to stay optimistic, and I really think that 8 wins is absolutely achievable. If that ends up being 14th on the ladder this season and then ends up being 11th or 12th, in season 2026, then fabulous. But I think that finishing 14th with a win-loss of 8 wins is a pretty good result for a side that has been lingering on the bottom of the ladder and only managing sort of 2 to 3 wins a season for the past few years. Moving on to individual accolades, and I've tipped Harry Sheezel to take home his 2nd Sid Barker medal in 3 seasons. There is just so much to love about Shees, and what more can I say that hasn't already been said before? He is an absolute superstar of our football club already at such a young age. He's had such a massive impact over the past 2 seasons that he's been at the club. And I think for Harry, he is just such a beacon of light and real hope for the club and for the future. And if he is someone that is going to guide the club into the next phase, he's at sort of the front of our next charge towards another premiership, then I think we're in very, very good hands. At the end of last season, he did suffer with injury a little bit. He missed the last couple of games of the year. That could have been the difference between him making the All-Australian side and not, and him taking home another best and fairest, and not to discredit the season that LDU had in 2024. I think we all agree it was definitely his best at North, and Tristan Cherry also had an excellent season. I think those 3 will be around the mark once again this season. I think they are probably the trio to beat. I do expect Nick Larkey to bounce back and have a big year in 2025 now that he's got some support with Jack Darling, and Brentika will have a full preseason under his belt as well. But I just feel like Harry is out and out professional and is far and beyond one of the biggest assets that our club has, and it would not surprise me if he was taking home the Sid Barker medal once again at the end of the season. I also think that he will make the All-Australian team in 2025. I think he was stiff probably to miss out, to be honest, in 2024. Like I said, maybe injury the last couple of rounds of the season maybe didn't do him any favors, but I do think that if he is able to stay on the park fully fit for the full 23 games of the year, then we could be in luck and have him in the All-Australian side in 2025. In terms of our leading goal kicker, I've actually gone for Paul Curtis. I think that Nick Larkey will bounce back after a relatively quiet 2024, and it was just in comparison to his 2023, which was out of this world, and it was going to be hard to compare to that. But I think Paul Curtis is on the edge of really hitting that next level in his career. The one thing I love about Paul Curtis is his defensive side. He was the second highest tackler inside the forward 50 across the competition in 2024. Now, Jack Darling has come over to North, and he does bring that tackling pressure and that defensive element to his game, which should really free up the likes of a Paul Curtis to have a big impact. I think that the addition of Luke Parker as well maybe will alleviate a bit of pressure off Paul Curtis as well, just to play a bit more freely and a bit more creatively. I also feel like, and I know Paul Curtis isn't a small forward, but maybe he can play. He's kind of a dynamic player. He is really good below his knees, and I feel like maybe he could step in to filling in that role, playing at the feet of a Darling or a Teakle and also a Nick Larkey. So I do expect a big year from Paul Curtis as well. Sticking with Paul Curtis, he is someone I'm expecting to have a big breakout season. Like I said, I think he'll be our leading goal scorer in 2025. I just feel like while his 2024 was excellent, I think he does have what it takes to hit yet another level in 2025. It's so easy to forget how young some of these players are. And, you know, when they start getting into their third, fourth, and fifth seasons, that's when they can really start to flourish and really start to find their rhythm and find their strengths and really start playing to them. So I really think that he will be one player definitely to watch in 2025. I also think Colby McKercher is going to have an incredible year. Obviously in 2024, he showed so many signs across his 16 games that he is going to be such a star, and he's going to be a real key element for us in building our fifth premiership side. But he did suffer an injury in the middle of the year, and it kept him sidelined. And while he did come back and he did look great, and he almost didn't look like he missed a beat, to be honest with you, and he did come back later on in the season. Hopefully he can get a full year under his belt, and we'll be able to see the very best of Colby McKercher and what he can do. Hopefully moving from that back line into the midfield, I think we can have some run and some pace through the middle of the ground, and going into our forward 50 as well will play to our strengths, not only of our midfielders but also to our forwards. Some clean ball use in there will never go astray. It's always been a problem at North, and unfortunately it hasn't been something we've been able to resolve quickly over the past few seasons. So hopefully for Colby, we see him push further up the field and have a real impact on the game. With Colby McKercher moving into the middle, I think Riley Hardiman would fit perfectly down back. Now, I don't know what the go is with Finn O'Sullivan and where he will play. Will he be developed on the half-back line like Sheasel and McKercher have been, or is he going to come straight into the middle? That is something we'll discuss a little bit closer to the season. However, I do think that Riley Hardiman will also have a big year. I think he's someone to watch. I'm so bullish on what he can do. He's packed on some size in the preseason and over the off-season, and I feel like we did see glimpses of what he is able to do when he did come into the side and play those few games earlier on in 2024. I think he should get a big chunk of footy in 2025. It'd be great to see him string sort of a 10-game patch together to really see what he can do and see if he can adapt at AFL level and see if he can really have an impact. I'm bullish on what he can do, and I really feel like he could be a great asset for us. Maybe not in the immediate term, but probably in the next 12 to 24 months when someone like Luke McDonald potentially explores life after football. And that's not to retire Luke off early or anything like that, but he will be hitting his later part of his career in the next few years, and potentially Hardiman can step into that role and fill it. The final player that I expect to have a breakout year, and this is a bit of a left of centre one, is actually Bryn Teakle. I think Bryn Teakle has got so much potential to really own that second ruck, third forward spot. With the acquisition of Jack Darling, it takes a little bit of pressure off Bryn Teakle. Now, he was excellent when he came into the side in the second half of the year. I feel like he slotted right in. He impacted the scoreboard straight away. He was pretty reliable in terms of a marking target up forward as well. And while I do feel like Sherry might be able to hit a point later on in the year where he can start rucking games out completely on his own, I don't think we should dismiss what Bryn Teakle might be able to add to the side with a full preseason under his belt. I understand he has been in the AFL system previously before he came over to North, but he only had the 6-month period at North. He played pretty much straight away as soon as he was added to the list, and he did fill a need, but I think that need is still required some attention in the medium to long term. Like I said, Jack Darling's there. He is expected to play 2 seasons. Maybe he'll play on a little bit longer. I don't know. But I think for Bryn Teakle, and we did see in 2024, we had that 3-prong forward line. It actually worked really well. We had Larkey, we had Teakle, and then we had Toby Pink, and each of them did have an element of their game that we really fed off, and the dynamic really worked well. Charlie Comben also came and played forward for portions of the second half of the season as well. So I'm really interested to see what Bryn Teakle can do with a full preseason under his belt. He was a mature age recruit, completely understand that. He has come in sort of ready-made and ready to go. But now that he's got that preseason under his belt and maybe he can play with a little bit more freedom, you've got Jack Darling down there as a real second marking key forward. Bryn Teakle maybe has the tank to be a bit more of a hybrid to kind of cover a little bit more ground. Maybe he pushes up further up the ground and provides that sort of target maybe in the middle of the ground and high on the 50-meter arc, and then you've got Darling and Nick Larkey as your sort of tall targets really closer to goal. I think it's a really interesting year for Bryn Teakle, and I think that he does have the potential to really step in to his own and find a role that really suits him. And I think he can be really dangerous if we play him right. So I'm very, very interested to see how he goes in season 2025. And one I am definitely keeping my eyes on. Now moving on to our first year players, and I think Finn O'Sullivan will be our best first year player. Sorry, Jack Darling, but I think Finn has you covered on this one. There was no way we were passing up Finn O'Sullivan when we took pick 2 into the draft in November last year. I expect him to have an immediate impact. I think he will play round 1 unless he's unavailable for selection. Where he plays, it's probably a discussion for another day, and probably have to wait until preseason returns and we see where he trains and what sort of thing he's doing. But I think he's a player that can have immediate impact. I don't want to put too much pressure on him to have to be another savior of the club the second he walks through the door, but I do think he really does have that ability. He has a cool, calm, collected head on his shoulders. He's a really good decision maker, and I think he's going to be an excellent asset at North in 2025. Another one I'd love to see, and I actually think we might see a little bit of, is Luke Urquhart as well. He's a bigger body midfielder, and he's someone that we brought in to really provide a bit of grunt and a bit of toughness in the middle of the ground in an under player, which is something that we might not really have at the moment. We do have a lot of class, and we do have a lot of class and run on the outside, but potentially need someone a little bit bigger and a little bit more ferocious to just attack the footy in and under at the bottom of every contest and every pack. I think we will see him debut at some point in the season, and maybe earlier than expected. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what he can bring. When we did draft him, I thought, oh my goodness, another midfielder. Is this someone that we really, really need? But he actually does feel a need. He probably does have an element that we have been lacking previously. He also does have the ability to push forward as well if and when required. You just never know. A goal-kicking midfielder is something that everyone wants on their list, a reliable goal-kicking midfielder at that. So I'm very, very excited for what he could bring. Maybe not this year. While I do think he'll debut, I don't know if he'll play, how many games he'll play. It's a different conversation, but I am really looking forward to seeing him in action as well. I think he could really be a diamond in the rough for North. Now that's who I'm confident on. Let's flip the coin. And there's a few players that come to mind when I think of players that are under pressure. The obvious one in my mind is Cam Zurhaar. He signed a big 5-year deal on the back of 75% what we know he can do and maybe 25% of what we hope he is able to do at a consistent level. Cam Zurhaar is undoubtedly an incredible talent, but he is inconsistent, and that has been a narrative for a lot of his career. I think he is actually at his best when he's split between playing in the midfield and then pushing up forward. Now, I understand that our structure probably in the first half of the season didn't really play to his strength because he was forced to play taller than he really is. He is a medium-sized forward, and he is a good target when we are kicking forward, but he's not going to be a Larkey, or he's not going to be a Darling. He's a medium-sized forward. He's not a tall forward. He's not a key forward. And we know what he can do when he is allowed to play with a little bit more freedom. That last quarter against Melbourne at the MCG, everyone remembers that. He almost won the game off his own boot. So we know what he can do at his brilliant best, but we just don't see it often enough. He did come back last season from the preseason in the shape of his life and potentially had a bit of a lackluster 2024. I'm really interested to see what he does in 2025. I think part of it is probably us shifting our expectation as well. He is probably no longer that live wire and that 4 to 5 goal player that we once knew. I feel like he does have that in him. Potentially his role has shifted a little bit to run through the midfield, to provide a bigger body, and to provide a bit of run, and then potentially to kind of be that linking player. It is a bit more of an unselfish role, for lack of a better word, and I think that he actually made that comment about his own game over the last sort of 24 months. But having said all that, I think he is under pressure to deliver. Like I said, he's just signed a 5-year deal. He's not going anywhere. He's committed himself to the club long term, but that's all well and good. But if you can't perform, then we've got a problem on our hands. So I do think that he will be able to find himself and find a balance for him. And I think part of that also falls on the coaches and finding a role that really suits him and how we can involve him in the game as much as possible. It is really difficult when you are a forward and you're an electric forward at that, and probably feed off a lot of energy and off a lot of momentum when the ball doesn't come into your forward line that often and all that cleanly at that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Cam can do in 2025, but I think if he doesn't live up to his expectation, then he could be under a little bit of pressure. The other player that I think may be under some pressure is Will Phillips. He did receive a 1-year contract at the end of 2024, but again, he was in and out of the side, and he kind of has been for most of his career. He can't seem to string a number of games together in a row. I'm not really sure what's going on there, and it's a story I'll definitely be following closely. We know he works as a tagger. He played some incredible games. Nick Dacos, the number one example of that in season 2024, but there's got to be more to him. He is a really good kick at the footy. I don't know where that's gone, and I just don't know how much of his glandular fever is still impacting him. I thought he'd probably be over it by now, but I think it can still have effects, especially high level performing athlete. You do really need to have full health, full stamina to go at it time and time again. So potentially that's impacted his game as well. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm looking forward to seeing if we can get something out of him in this season, but you'd think this might be his last chance to have an impact. I'd hate to think what happens to Will Phillips at North Melbourne at the end of 2025 if he can't show us why we picked him at pick 3. And it's not his fault that he was at pick 3 either, that he was taken. That's a decision that the club made. It's something that he just has to really embrace and hopefully use it to spur him on and have a breakout year in 2025. Nick Larkey is probably the other one for me that is under a little bit of pressure. I know that he had an outstanding year in 2023 and for whatever reason couldn't back it up in 2024. Not to say he had a bad year, it just didn't really compare to season 2023. Hopefully the acquisition of Darling and hopefully Bryn Teakle now having a full preseason under his belt will help Nick Larkey out a lot. I also feel like now that Bryn Teakle is in the side, Larkey shouldn't have to ruck. There were times in the year where he had to chop out Sherry because Sherry needed a break. That is no longer, I would hope anyway, and I feel like Nick Larkey should not leave that forward line unless he absolutely has to, and hopefully we can get him back fit and firing. The other players I wanted to make mention of, and I don't know if they're under pressure so much in terms of positions and stuff like that. I just feel like they're under pressure to deliver, and it's the 3 All-Australians that we brought in over the trade period, Parker, Darling and Daniel. I do think there's an element of pressure for them to perform at North Melbourne. They've all come across because we really, really needed strong leadership and strong experience. We know the tale. It's been told time and time again, but I feel like if they don't perform, we could have a bit of a problem. And I just think that's because all of them have been highly praised. All of them have been hyped up. I think there's a lot of excitement, particularly around Luke Parker coming across to North. But if they come in and can't do the job properly, then again, we've got a bit of a problem on our hands. And I do feel like all of them should be able to have an impact at North in some way or another. But I just feel like there's probably a little bit of pressure around them and their need to perform as well. The other few I'll just mention is our two co-captains, Luke McDonald and Jai Simpkin, for different reasons. I think there's pressure on them to perform alongside these three guys as well, and maybe to a lesser extent Zach Fisher as well. I know he was injured in 2024 for portions of 2024, but he was a high price recruit at the end of 23 when he did come across and maybe didn't live up to the expectation that we had on him either. So there's lots of players under the microscope, and I'm looking forward to seeing how each of them perform when the pressure is put on them. Now, when it comes to awards across the league, I did mention that I think Harry Sheezel will make the All-Australian team for the first time in 2025, but I think that LDU and Tristan Xerri should be part of that discussion as well. I think all three of them are set for another monster season, and it would be a real shame if they weren't recognised at a league level, at least with the nomination into the squad. Tristan Xerri was pretty stiff not to make that team, and Sheezel probably would have made it had he not been injured in the last 2 rounds of the year. So I'm interested to see if they can back it up, and if they are able to back it up, are they going to be recognised amongst the league's best? I really think they should. I also think that Jackson Archer could be a chance to take out the league's most courageous player. He plays just like his dad did, and he had an incredible second half of the year, a real breakout year for him last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can bring that once again, that real shin boner spirit and fight. And finally, some storylines I'm looking forward to following in season 2025, and top of the list is Luke Davies-Uniacke. I personally think he will re-sign and commit to North Melbourne for life with a mega deal before the bye in season 2025. Now, I think 30% of me is just hoping that I'm right on that one, but I genuinely believe he does see himself at North Melbourne for his career, and I really hope that we can prove ourselves on field and then work with him off the field to come to an agreement that makes everyone happy and that can really secure his future at North Melbourne. I think that will give us a mega boost heading into the second half of the season and beyond. I also think that Finn O'Sullivan will finish top 3 in the NAB Rising Star. I don't think Colby McKercher is eligible. Someone can double check on that, but he played 16 games in his first year, so I don't think he will be eligible for nomination, but I do think that Finn O'Sullivan will be not only nominated but finishing in the top 3. I also think that Riley Hardiman will earn himself a nomination, and a name I haven't brought up is Zane Dersma, but I also think he will be nominated for the Rising Star this year as well. Our young kids are so exciting, and we have just got the cream of the crop, in my opinion, at Arden Street, and I think that multiple players will be recognised in the Rising Star competition throughout the season. I also think we're going to win our first game of the year. We did win our first game back in 2023 against West Coast at home, and I feel like we could get the jump on the Western Bulldogs on a Saturday night blockbuster to open our season. We did come close to the Bulldogs in the middle of last year when we played them under the roof at Marvel, and I just feel like there's so much hype and there's so much excitement surrounding North heading into 2025, and I think the belief from the inner sanctum is real, and I think that should propel us into a round 1 victory, and wouldn't that be an incredible way to start off our season? Speaking of wins, I also think we will win our game against the West Coast Eagles in Bunbury at Hands Oval. I'm curious to see what success looks like in the first year of the Western Australian experiment. If that's what you want to call it, let's just go with that for now. I feel like it will get a tick after the first year. I feel like it's structured really, really well. We play there 2 games in a row, so we can base ourselves there for a 7, 8, 9 day period if needed. We can get acclimatized. There's, it's the other side of the country. It is pretty far away from Melbourne, so our ability to base ourselves there for a period of time definitely works in our favor. I think that winning at least 1 game is what we're going to have to do to classify it as a pass mark on field. Obviously, West Coast and North have had quite a few really close encounters over the past few years. We've been sitting at a similar position on the ladder, but we also play Optus Stadium quite well, and even when we haven't been at our best, but we've been playing a stronger opposition, we have been able to take them out. We beat West Coast over there in 2021. We also beat Fremantle there in 2023. Both of those sides were better than North at the time and were able to get the job done. So I think winning 1 game over in WA would classify it as a success, but I think the game against Fremantle at Optus Stadium should still be competitive. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we show up in that second game, because we will be fresher legs playing Fremantle at Optus Stadium after a week in Perth. So I'm very, very excited to see how that looks. Couple more to finish us off, and I think North will finally get a win at Gather Round. Now, we haven't really had the best opportunity in the past 2 seasons playing Brisbane in 2023 and 2024, the runners-up and the premiers that year. I think playing the Gold Coast Suns is a really great opportunity for us to get our first win. We know the Suns are notoriously terrible away from home. Now, I don't want to bank on that to be the reason why we win this game. We have won games against the Suns in 2024 and 2023 respectively. So I feel like if there's an opportunity for us to win a game at Gather Round, then this would be it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing if we can get the win over in the Barossa Valley. And finally, I think Braden George will make his long-awaited debut for North Melbourne in season 2025. Unfortunately, Sausage, as we like to call him, has been hampered by injury pretty much since he walked through the door and hasn't been able to get his body right and ready for AFL level, but I feel like now is finally his time. He seems like he's ready to go as well. He should be back on the park by the time pre-season starts at North Melbourne. This video will probably be out just before the players return to the track at Arden Street for the start of the 2025 season. I think that we will see Braden George running around in the seniors at some point during the year, and I think he is going to have an immediate impact. I think he's going to just burst onto the scene, and I'm so excited for Braden George to start playing some footy at North Melbourne. Well, there you have it, all of my quick fire predictions and hot takes for North Melbourne ahead of the 2025 season. What did you think of all of those? And more importantly, what are your best takes and predictions for season 2025? Leave all of your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kanga TV and share Kanga TV with all of your North Melbourne friends and family. We are so close to the 2025 season beginning, and I've got so much planned here on the channel, and I hope to take you guys along the emotional roller coaster and the North Melbourne journey for season 2025. We're all in this together, and we are all here to support each other emotionally through what is going to be a very, very exciting season, no doubt. We can also keep up the conversation over on social media, Kanga TV Show on Instagram and X. I've got more prediction videos coming for you soon, predicting our best 23 for 2025 and every result for North Melbourne. But until then, go Roos.